Hi everyone, Shirley here. Welcome to my studio. I find it really hard to say, studio. Anyway, welcome to my workshop. I'm going to be doing a watercolour, and I'm going to find one on from my photographs from various trips that I've done. But in the meantime, I think I'll just start by giving you a quick show of what I've been doing in here. So I wander around. This is my watercolour kit set up, ready to go. Now I've been doing oils. I've been doing large oils, and I'll just come around here. Kind of got to stand back. 1.8 meters wide for that one. This is my piece de resistance, as one might say at the moment. I love it. It's a Wentworth Falls. It was very dramatic. My sister and I had been plein airing down the end of the river, or further down the stream anyway. We walked back up a different way than we normally do, and we came across Weeping Rock. What a beautiful name. Poetic. So I painted that, and it's going to be for my exhibition coming up in July. I'll have some details of that further down the track. So that one, that's a bit in the way. Hang on, take that away. This is another painting I'm doing, and I've just got someone has decided they're going to buy that from me, so that's sold already before it's finished, which is lovely. That one down there, that's a plein air that I did recently. Let's see if I can show a bit of detail without shaking. Works on the wall are always there. I do swap them around because I do have a lot around in just leaning against walls and stored. I like to see them out. They're all my babies. And this one I like. Just the patterns of the city. I do have a few left over from my exhibition up at Katoomba, like this one. I have snow gums. This semi-abstract one got shortlisted for an award, got hung in New South Wales Landscape Prize, Plein Air Prize. Bondi Beach, painted plein air but finished here in the studio. And I've got a few of these from the reservoir underneath Sydney, the water storage area that they emptied. They empty once every 20 years, and they get a photographer to go down and record the building, which Bob and I did. Bob was commissioned, I was his assistant because he's had the stroke. I think nearly everything is somewhere on my website because I'm using it like a gallery. Little honey there at the door, waiting for the fun to begin, which it ain't at the moment for her. I'm going to do a painting. So I'll come round and I'll get set up and show you what we're going to work on today. Well, I've just been through my photographs, and I've decided I shall do a waterfall that I took recently, which relates to my other paintings that I've got in the background here. I'll put it up. You probably can't see it from the screen very well. I'll put it up in the corner, one of them, and I shall paint from the actual screen, so there won't be a piece of paper sitting here on my desk like I normally do. I'll start with a level line across the bottom, and then I might exaggerate the height of that waterfall there, and there's a bold up the top here, kind of shaped like that. Water comes down that way, water comes down that way. I've got this lovely Z thing happening. So they're coming down there. There's one ridge right across the top. There is another ridge that's fatter. I'm drawing the bottom part of the ridge. There is a big stone there. and another big stone. Now I'm not quite sure whether that, I have a feeling that stone is sitting like really big in the middle of that waterfall. And then on this side, the water's coming through, and there looks like little steps almost coming down there. Ah, there's a person in the middle there, it's causing a problem. I'll just zoom in. The beauty of working from a call it a digital image is that you can zoom in to see what's happening. So water coming down there. And this lot over here is virtually falling straight down and hitting some things. There is a lot of detail in this, but I'm going to simplify it because of the size of the page. So there's some young boys sitting up there on a ledge, and there's, believe it or not, there's a man there doing meditation, I think. So there's water coming down that way, there's water coming that way, there's some coming that way and then that way. Rock, there's rock ledges underneath here, down to thin, very thin white water there. Oops. Shapes of trees coming in. Some up there in the sky, some behind, very faint. Lots more up here. Adding some interesting shapes here that will help me later on. There's a stepping, I think there's steps there, but I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. And the water comes around the front here like that. So there's some beautiful white shapes underneath that waterfall. So for what it's worth, that's my sketch. It's pretty much very vague. I shall do a blue sky, in so much as I'll put water on the sky, then I'll touch in some, I'll clean that. Sometimes I have dirty pans, but when I do a sky, usually want to have a bit of clean blue to go into it. I'm just tapping it in because it just seems to be that type of very, very pale colour. And then I'll bring that down to the top of the trees, top of the waterfall, behind those trees. Slight yellow on my brush then when I started, but I don't mind that. Sometimes you can have a little bit of a tinge of warmth in the cloud. But now I'm going to put some blue behind the waterfall here into some areas. On the areas that are coming down the hill, like the vertical planes. I'll wipe that out a bit. That will help that the white paper not look so devoid of detail. A little bit of purple on my brush too, and bring that down here. Can just fill in the whole area here and then drag it across. Don't know why I wet my brush every now and then like that, just to weaken the colour. So these strokes are undercolour, underpaintings. The yellow for this, where the dark's going to be strong at the top there near the white. Very strong over there. I'll put some brown into it straight away. Don't like that brown. I'll go for a bit of orange, maybe. Okay. Still not terrific, but I can come back to that. I shall blend it into the yellow. It's almost like I need a green in that yellow, just to dull it off. On this side there is a rock. And I think I'll throw some green, the foliage in on the sides at this stage, just to get that going. Sun's shining. I might just use some patterns in the brush. Same on this side. I'll just run that down to brown and dark green. I'm really scrubbing away at some of these colours because I don't have much of them left. This is what happens when you run out. You just have to dig deep. I just dropped my brush there, which meant that I've now got some extra foliage I didn't mean to have. Some brown in there. Might actually put a little bit of blue, my usual ultramarine blue, in that green. Oh. Clean the brush. Mix straight into the blue. I want a dirty blue, I don't want a pretty blue. It's the leaves that I'm trying to... The Aussie leaves not very often have this golden green on them, but the sun was hitting them at this time of day and that makes them look greener than what they really are. I don't want to leave those... I'll wet my brush and I'm just going to randomly go over the edges there to soften those dark colours up, because it's going onto dry paper already. Only white in the area is going to be that waterfall. That said, I'll define the back of the waterfall, the top of it, with some interesting little trees back there. Make it look really a long way away. That said, I need to go bluer and I need to be more random. Random is important. Change the shapes and change what's there in the actual photograph is a very... Oops, make sure I don't get a blob of water on that. I'm just weakening it off. It's a very high tree. Really high. Right. Okay. Now, we're going to go for a nice strong brown. It's almost a black. I'm going to mix up a fair amount of it. So I'll do burnt umber. burnt umber that's got a bit of purple in it. I don't know what that's good for, because it's not strong enough. Then I'll go for the ultramarine. Really having trouble here. I know this one beside it's phthalo blue. I might just start using that. Oh, look at the different colour I've got. But that's it. I'll get rid of those tissues. Might be useful. The main thing is you want it strong. The reason I want it strong is because I'm mixing it with the opposite colour, so it's going to go dark. I just want a very dark neutral colour. I feel like I'm painting plein air because I'm really battling the heat. It's hot and the paints are drying quickly. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I got some really interesting lines to put in, so I'm going to go for a random rigger. I call it random because it does its own thing. It tends to make its own shapes and lines. I don't have much control over it. So I'm putting in the top detail there. On my photograph it's very contrasty, so probably from a traditional point of view should be doing it really pale, but add in a bit of brown to that as I go down, make it more interesting. Comes down to kind of a rock. It's going to start getting very sketchy here. And I can come back, if I draw it in with my brush like this, I can come back like this in wet areas and blend the paint down. Go back to my darks, put in a bit of dark there. Put this big rock in. I'll use the burnt sienna every now and then for interesting colour and line detail. I think I have to come dark there. Following my initial lines sometimes without really looking to see if they're still accurate, but I think it's still the best way to go. I think this is a whopping great big rock just sitting there in the middle of the falls. Later on I'll have a look at some other photographs and I'll probably find it something totally different, like a man standing there or something. Kind of like a big ghost with a cloak. But I'll just add some detail to that rock. And this is not necessarily in the painting, I'm just also half making up. In the photograph, I'm using what I can see in the photograph and then as a guide, and then maybe every now and then doing something different. But these ones here are fantastic. Right. On this side we've got lots of falling patterns. A few lines in here and there to indicate the areas that the water's going. Just feel that this big splash happening there, I think. I'm not sure, but I kind of think it's coming all the way down. Need to come in closer. Yeah, there's some big action happening. These rocks have ridges all the way across, which I'm drawing in, and I'll come back later and fiddle with those. And detail there. A big a big rock edge comes down across. And I'll go a bit darker on this. There. Has there. So what I'll do there is just thicken those up. Try and give them importance. I could have also gone that way too, which I'll do for the next one. There's a random ridge there. And then we have the edge, which is all very good. In most cases it doesn't always exist, so I have to stop it here and stop it there. Right. And then we have various sort of little triangles to indicate the water's going down. Like this. That way it skews off that way. This one it sort of sucks in that way. So you don't have all coming down in one direction. They all skew out different ways depending on what rocks they're hitting at the top. And with what force they're hitting too, for that matter. Now, I'm going to go into the blue just for the sake of variety, because I've done so much brown up the top, and now that I'm playing with water, I'll just make it bluer in the background. I mean on the edges. In the background it's going to be brown anyway because of the rocks themselves. Right, I shall now go to I'm tempted to use a nice wedge shaped brush, because sometimes you can get beautiful flat rocky shapes with this type of thing. So I'm bringing that across. There are all sorts of colours and patterns in these rocks. I can see by looking in closely, I can see there's holes. Don't know that I want that colour. Might mix it together. It feels like I'm playing with old school ink, to tell you the truth. I'm not getting the nice richness that I'd like. And I don't know why. Could be the temperature I'm working in. I like to blame it. But the paper is sucking up really quickly. Let's wet this down. And then start looking at the different shapes that I need to create. That way. I will come down with those. Black, blue, brown. Push it sideways a touch. There. Definitely we'll be coming back over this with gouache, I think, unless I can soften these now. Right. Yeah, I've got a funny feeling I'd be better off just swiping right across with the black, but I haven't done that now, so I won't do it. I'll go into some blues at the top, bluey black colours over here. So I guess when I say bluey black, I'm kind of meaning grey. There's not much. I'll just put these shades in here. This tree, this whole rock is dark. So now what's happening is that the drawing I just did with my brush is beginning to melt out and help with the interesting shapes. So I'll get some greens on my brush, very, very dark, and I'm going to add the green to the dark black colours that I've just had and continue out some of these shapes and then make them blend in with the foliage. The whole idea is to take the eye straight out without any interference. This foliage has all got to just melt in to the black edges, kind of framing the painting. What happens up there? Okay, we've got black coming in here, dark brown. Okay, I'll go back to traditional watercolour technique. I'll get my picture down to a normal size and I'll make up some interesting greens. Okay, I wonder if that's too interesting. But now that it's there, it's there. So I just add this in, smudging with the handle of the heel of the brush. Now I'll get some purples, and they're going to be helpful in creating a feel of water falling. Purple's such a wonderful colour, so versatile, purple and blues. Put some darks on this side. I'm not quite going as dark as the photograph shows that I could. Some purples into the blacks, purples into the trees as well. That's how versatile it is. It's just a universal shadow colour. Into quite using a bit of purple down the bottom here, I think. So let's see how I can exaggerate the fall. Don't know. basically going to need solid black down here, I think. Can't quite see any other way. Might join that across. So if you decide later that you're going to do something different, you can always come back and add the white. See, I've got some shadows to go here, I think. I'm just exaggerating some of these. Definitely going to have to come back on white just to thicken it up, to give it that presence. Golden colour here. Then I'll wet my brush, and then I'll just put water on that top side to make that gold bleed up. Is it going to do that? Do I need to encourage it? Adding more gold into the mix. Then more water. Go on, up you go. Climb, you bastard. Okay. Bit more black up here, just to bring in the 3 dimensions. I'm still using my brush in a sketchy way. And over here, this needs the darkness of foliage. Some more, what do you call those things? Steps, I think. Got a bit of a dry brush happening. I'm just experimenting with some of these colours that are coming away from the waters, the foam. Okay, so one other thing I need to do up the back there, it hasn't quite, the white on top of that one doesn't quite get defined enough without a slightly darker colour. I don't want to go too dark. But on the other hand, these branches have coming over the top, interfering with the view in an interesting way. Right, so at this stage I shall do I'll have fun with a little bit of, I think this is going to be too thick. Yeah, I've got this size 4 brush, but rigger brush, but I just think I need to wear out those hairs a bit more. I'll see what other type of, oh, that's one better. Oh, that's a 6. Okay, this is a 4. I picked up the wrong size. So, just going to start playing around with introducing line, because there is a lot of line in the bush, and that's the branches. And that's where this rigger style brush really helps. So just the branches and random Sometimes there's more there than I put in. I sometimes don't put as many in as there are because it's just too busy. Just hunting around for different colours here, and anything that's dark will do. I'll pick up the browns and the blues, purples. I'll put a whole stack in here. Dark in dark is really interesting, especially if you really want it to not be like it's oh, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm running out. Oh boy. Oh, it's in my head. I just can't get it out. The gob. Tiny little branches up there. Plus ones that come all the way up to the top. And then these ones. For every bunch of leaves, there has to be a supporting network of lines underneath that bunch. Now you can have them hanging out and looking like the branch is so thin that it's burnt out in the sun. That's quite a good thing to do. So I want to add a lot of texture with these branches, because this is basically what the bush is all about. The lumps of leaves and then heaps of texture. So I've made up these branches down there, they're not there. I just wanted to support that area. And then these that can be supported over here. I've deliberately made a vignette. I deliberately have not wanted this time to go right to the edge. I'm going to come in a minute with some dry brush gouache and have some fun with that water. Just put a few extra dark sections in here, especially that rock sitting there. I'll darken these branches just to take attention away from the distance there, because that's what's happening there, sitting in front. And there's some more here. Lots more on the side here. Looks like a dead tree coming in. And because it's actually in the photograph, I wouldn't put it in if I wasn't. This is where working from photographs is so much more interesting. If you were just making this scene up out of your head, you wouldn't think to put these lines down the side there. So that's kind of what makes modern art when you're not trying to do twee traditional scenes. If you're happy to paint what you see, or be inspired by what you see, I guess you could put it, then it's not so bad. Lost my thought. I don't blame you guys if you all turn off. See if I can bring that around a bit better. Might have been easier if I'd done that at the beginning. Okay. Just trying to clean off this brush. Even though the water looks dirty, it's not really, so it's quite clean. Now I'm going to go for some, I'm going to go right out of the tube. I'll get rid of the tissue, chuck that. I'll grab a new fresh one because I'm probably going to need it. Oops, now I just used that not very long ago and it's already dry. So it's probably going to be too stiff. I might have to weten it up. Now, I like to run the gouache where the white is already and then blend it down over the colour. softens the colour to a degree that, yes, nice. Certainly is a day for dry brush. Those black lines there, I'll just run the foam back up into them. Some over crossways over the top like that. Through there. I'll just sort of splash that back up. And on this side I'll do line, line, line. Make it look like we know where it came from, because this water is just sort of merging into, or coming out of all sorts of areas. One across there, one across there like that. And the beauty of this, putting a line over a white gouache over here, is that you're thinning out those black lines really thinly, and that's really lovely. So here, let's come down the foreground with a little. I've got paint on my brush, but it's straight from the tube and it's very dry, very solid and thick. So it's not it's easy to capture the texture of the paper. Not that there's much texture, I must admit. This is smooth paper. I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's very hard for, especially if you're a beginner. If you're doing something like botanical painting, something that needs really neat little shapes, this is the paint, this is the paper you want. But for my style, it doesn't suit because I'm a rough painter. Let's go back in there, soften that up. Just going to make a few little spots in there to make it look like it's behind those branches. And it's over here and here. So it's just sort of bleeding out. Now down the bottom, we're going to put some fat, juicy bits of gouache there, there, across there. Kind of, it's hitting these rocks, causing wonderful patterns. And just here it's coming down really thickly, as is under this one, and this one. On this side it's actually coming down from this rock here. So it looks like I'm going to have to redo those branches I just put in. I'll splash it off there. Now I'm going to, and the other reason I like to do this gouache is because sometimes the paper we work on is not quite as white as the gouache is. So you can get that extra tone coming in. So I don't think you could even call this has got to a stage now where it's not watercolour anymore, because I'm relying so much on the gouache. It's a gouache painting. So I'm just blending that up there a little bit so that it's sort of like distant, because of the distance it's out of focus. See if I can do some random shapes. Yeah, I don't mind that. Okay. Now into the water below, I'm going to be looking at the thickest area there has got the white coming down, and that area there, and that area there. So just random lines of reflections. I'll put a little bit of white over here. Right. Okay, so one more thing I need to do. Let's see what's. I'll just pick out some of these branches with light tops on them. Sometimes this fades out and you don't see it, other times it's what you want to see. And so much as if I'm putting white on now, if it fades away to a grey colour, I'll be happy about that. Because as much as I want to pick out these branches, I don't want them to stand out black and white. Okay, I think I'm about done. I might just, with the thin brush, where could I add some more? Just some really thin lines like that so as to attract attention. And make it look very wet. Curving those down a bit. Right, and that is enough fiddling for today. Something funny going on now that I'm looking at it. The shapes up here reflecting in the shapes down here, so I'm going to just to knock that out, put a little bit of colour across the base to stop the that, and then across the sky for the fun of it. Go for very clean water at the sky. I can't find clean water at the end of the day. Down in the big bucket, that'll do. Just want to take away from that curve. And there's one more way, another way I can do is fill in the trees that were behind there. Just see what they're supposed to do. Add a little bit of green to them. Believe it or not, I'm going to darken them. I'm going to darken that off. Take some vertical lines up into that area. Just need to somehow make that look more realistic. One tree going up. A random bunch of things happening this side. So I'll just, you know, do that. Okay, it's a bit overexposed. Just been to the hairdresser and I asked for blonde. I think I ended up with grey. Anyway, I'm not grey. It's the only thing. I'm old, but I'm not grey. So anyway, thank you very much for watching my painting of the waterfall at Wentworth Falls. Lots of W's there. It was fun, and I'll have the materials below my type of paints that I use and all that below this video, and the photo that you can use for your own reference to have a go at painting this scene is on my website, and that link is below as well. Not my main website, I have another website which is just for YouTube support reference material. So thanks for being with me, and look forward to catching up next time.